Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and very happy to be here today. But I've just gotten shocking and very sad news that David Wilcock appears to have committed suicide in front of the police, in front of his home. So I guess this is being confirmed now, but it's not completely confirmed. So I'm just putting this interview here today was not supposed to be about that, but we can certainly address it. This is Karenann and Lucy. Tell me your name
Lucyk.
because I can't think of it. I'm sorry.
Kind of nameless. Karenann is my first, obviously, and then Lucyk is my mother's side. MacDonald is my father's side. So
MacDonald. Okay.
Lucyk, yeah.
Apologize for that. My
No
mind
problem.
is a little bit discombobulated here, but okay. So Karen Ann is a clan mother, and I'm not sure. I hear a healer, a psychic intuitive, and you have. We've done other shows before, so I
Yeah.
encourage you to see those. And you live in Canada, correct?
The Canadian jurisdiction is probably offside the land, but yeah, this is the area people know as British Columbia, and it's actually the tribes originally here are called the Sinaiaks. It's a very rare site, Carrie, because it's actually where the prophecy rocks are. So I'm sitting at the Valhalla Mountains at the Slocan Valley. So trajectory, I just did a huge show actually with Danny Henderson and her Galactic Informers, actually. And the reason why is because she wanted to hear all about the Q552 Nelson base and everything about the stargates around here.
Oh,
So this is where, again, a lot of the super soldiers, as you know, like Max Spears and James Casbolt, James Rink, and now Holly has contacted me, Baglio, because she's been getting a lot of recurring memories from being, taken and trained here and abused and tortured basically in the Nelson Q552 base. So we've all started kind of reassembling a little bit and putting some of our, information and experiences together. So it was actually pretty profound in the last week. I haven't moved out of this chair since Friday, since it aired, actually. A lot of people are very
okay.
interested in these bases and sacred sites and stuff that we have up here, why they're being put on fire with direct energy weapons as well.
Okay, so do you want to describe like this? It's an underground base. Have you
Mhm.
been underground, or are you just aware of it from how do you know about it?
Okay. The reason I knew about when I was in Saskatoon growing up, because I was part of the bases conference. So I kept hearing about all the super soldiers talk about it. I didn't realize that, 5, 10 years later, I'd be living out basically here on top of this mess. Anyway, and getting to meet people and super soldiers that are working in there. And I have people that are vets, active and inactive that have all been in there. So one of the interesting things though is that my experience directly with sort of inner earth or stargates or basis came in 2006. So after I was trying to do, as we did a show last year about the child protection and what they had done for targeting my children and being in the court system and trying to stop that, satanic panic and everything that we're seeing with the children, is that subsequently I was taken by a Canadian military officer commander to the Stargate. But the Stargate that I was taken to is in the Okanagan lower part, closer to Washington, and that's referred to as Hope. And that's the area that, again, in the last couple of years, they flattened Lytton right next door to Hope, right next to the gate. We know why they're doing it, just like they did Jasper and out here. So those towns, some of them right near, were just absolutely leveled like Maui and in Paradise as well. So that was the gate that I was actually taken to. So I can talk a little bit about that. So after they were impressed that I was standing up in the courts and I had my arm broken by a sheriff because I refused to stand up for the people in the robes, and I knew that they were alleged to be pedophiles, there was no way I was going to submit to a man or any lower court. And from that point, a lot of people had heard about this. And so I was taken for about a week and I was briefed in the Okanagan area. And not that far from one of our mutual friends, Doc Ram, so Dr. Richard Allen Miller, right? He now thinks he's my, I think he thinks my benevolent uncle or my benevolent father. I don't know. But
Okay, now But you're calling this base Nelson. Nelson is his last name. He's from the original
I
Nelson line.
do. I do.
Is that
There's a,
just a coincidence or what's happening here?
no, there's no coincidence to a lot of that. There's a lot of little Nelsons down here, and due to Admiral
I
Nelson,
see.
and yeah,
Oh,
and it ties in. It's actually a sister city to actually Victoria, which is known to be the capital of British Columbia, which just happens to be where, Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria started making all the agreements with the First Nations and starting to eradicate them through the trafficking up here. So it was interesting, as I was talking to, Rick about this, because he talks a lot more so about the dams in the northern part of the Okanagan, which is near Salmon Arm. So he talks about the Spokane Dam. He doesn't speak that much about Nelson. Most people don't like Nelson. If I ever mention, I go, yeah, I'm near Nelson. They go, oh, we feel sorry for you, because it sounds really, and what I've been told is that the Nelson part anyway, that they're trying to really raise the fourth right here. And there is a lot of stuff I have seen. You can go to the cemeteries here. There's people with the last name of Mengele, like Joseph Mengele. So there's
oh,
Mengele.
right.
Oh, it's
That's
insane.
weird.
Yeah. So, I went to do a lot of genealogy. So I've gone to the different, not only sacred sites here and the rock petroglyphs that we have, but just to finish that story, when I was taken and briefed for about a week in the Okanagan, part of it towards the end of the week, they took me in a van. We went for hours, and now I know it would be close to Hope, in that area. And when we went to Hope, we went for a couple hours into the mountains. And it was very ironic that I sat there and I opened the window because I was bored listening to all these men, quite frankly. I don't know if they ever get hear this again, but I was bored. So I opened up the window and I actually grabbed one of the leaves because it was literally like a safari. We were like in the woods. There was just like two little ruts. So I opened it up, I grabbed a leaf, and they slammed the van down, shut it down. And I said, what's the problem? Can't you play, with wildlife in like, the bush here? What's your problem? And he goes, we're here. And I had no idea how energetically or psychically I was connected to this, Carrie. So literally on the other side of the clearing, and you wouldn't be able to see it. You had to go past the trees, but right on the other side of the trees was like seeing this opening like SG1 and seeing all these petroglyphs. And they took me to these rocks and petrified woods. And just like you see all the symbols in the ancient, literally in the movie SG1, I was looking at it going, oh my gosh, this is like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was totally enthralled. And I knew this was something that, it was a protected site. It's not open to the public. And it's only because of my genetics and basically the clan mother lineage I was taken there. And
Okay,
so,
but when you say you were taken, these are friends of yours, or how
yeah,
did that?
they are friends, but they're Canadian military. They're, yeah, they're part of the forces. So I was taken there by the forces. This is not, subsequently we became friends. I really didn't know them before then. But when we went to this, clearing or area, you will literally see, just like you see the two lines in the circle, like the Stargate symbol, all of those are in there. Like it was a constellation map. And actually, they said they hadn't quite decoded it. And I looked at it and I said, that's probably because you're a male. And not joking, but it's how you read things. And they were looking at it like they were trying to look up the constellation. I said, you're looking at it ass backwards because we came here. And I sat there and I said, if you reversed it, it actually is a constellation map. And it was. And so a lot of the stuff that I did, in Project Ascension later on, I realized these were actually treaties and time alignments with the Draco, the reptilian, with the earth beings or whatever you want to say, with the clans and the tribes like the Andromeda Council. They were put into rocks or into these memorials, different stones. So when I went out there, it was absolutely amazing. There was also sort of a crystal cave, and I remember about the first 20 minutes or half an hour, and then I have no memories after that. But it was incredible to see that. He also wrote a book out here. He was very much involved in the gold mining, the pit mining. He wrote a whole thing on
Okay, when you
Sasquatch
say
too.
he, who were you
I'm
talking
coming
about?
to that. The book that he wrote was called Stone Innocence. His name is R.W. Nicholson. And Rob Nicholson not only wrote the book on stolen innocence to do with the child trafficking in British Columbia and all the missing children back in the 1990s, after he left the military. But in here, like I said, this whole thing, there's Sasquatches up here. There's the mining. I'm sitting on gold and silver mines here and Tesla generators that have been running for 130 years. They're trying to shut down here. So we know that we'll say the base is here. Everything between Salmon Arm, Hope, Banff, Jasper, and Nelson have got bunkers that connect them, transit lines, right? The maglevs.
Sure.
In here, I happened to not only stumble on some extra maps that Sergeant Bessard had given me, which is not just the usual, level 1, these all connect here, that most of us have seen through the boring tunnels. But there's other maps that go about probably 200 and 400 miles that are apparently even larger cities with different ET or alien groups. Now, the interesting thing is I was stumbling upon after World War II, there is an open bunker that people can go into in Nelson. And I looked through all that. You can see exactly where James Casbolt talks about stuff, Max Spears talks about. I mean, everyone knows where the Hume Hotel is. You can see the actual Tartarian buildings. The courthouse there, where the RCMP and the sheriffs all are, it's in those Tartarian buildings. And they've got the most disgusting things about children, looking phallic symbols and all sorts of stuff. Nelson is a very dirty underground with their masonry and other things that they have here. But what I found as well was 200 maps a map with over 200 bunkers in British Columbia. These are basically the bunkers that they had for World War II. And roughly there was about close to 200 per province. So that's basically 2,000 bunkers that they did post World War II and into World War II for Canada alone. So when people think this is a safe zone, they better think again, because this is where most of the action is. And if you know about child trafficking, that, where children get taken off the Ute reserves and all the other things, and the Pueblos down in the States from, the First Nations and Star Nations there, a lot of these children are trafficked into British Columbia and into the islands because you can disappear up here and no one's going to know where you are. It's pretty spread out, right?
Okay, so we kind of launched from David Wilcock's possible suicide to this, and I'm not sure the transition, and we didn't really set this up, what you're talking about. Okay, so maybe we could give it a bit more of an introduction because
Sure.
you've gone into like details, but we haven't, I don't think that the average viewer is going to kind of know where you're going. You know what I'm saying? I might, but they're not going to follow this because I've talked to you in the past and things. But so can you, if you were going to back it up a little and talk to the audience to give them a framework to deal with this. So it seems to involve the tribes and a certain area of Canada. What area are we talking about exactly? Because when you go, you say Nelson, you say this place, that I don't know where that is. I don't have a map in front of me. Where is all that? Is it in a province, like a certain province, obviously?
Right. There are bunkers everywhere, but British Columbia is what most people in the States would know where Washington is. And if you know roughly where Spokane, Washington is, we would be directly above that area.
Okay.
Okay, so
that's in Canada, but not in Washington.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can screen share.
So it is British Columbia.
Yeah, on there.
Okay.
And so one of the things too, if I was to go, and I can screen share here, because I think you have an excellent point here. A lot of people just don't know the logistics and the geography of where we are talking in here. And when you look at the area, it's actually all connected. And maybe that's, I spend a lot of my time on Google Earth. So I like to look at, where the sacred sites are, where the ley lines, and how these things connect. Because to me, like military, there really isn't any, borders here. And that's one of the things that, just to put it into perspective for people. And I guess how the transition, just to backtrack a bit, when I was, thinking and beginning, like sort of my delving into this sort of thing, because I had memories and stuff of, seeing reading Sasquatch and stuff and seeing strange things in the lights. But a lot of people, it was David Wilcock and people like him and that I started watching the Basis Project and yourself. And also, I actually was very much involved in the natural health, obviously, and superfood movement. So I was actually watching David Wilcock because he did a 10-part series as they were trying to get sovereign with David Wolf. So I was watching David Wolf and, doing all this stuff then. That's how I got introduced to some of this. But one of the things in here, I'll just actually screen share because I think that's important that people know where these areas are because, like you said, it means nothing to anyone if they can't see it visually here. So I'll just screen share for just a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here. Yeah. So on here, just so you see where Nelson is, I just put this in here. So Nelson is known, this whole area from basically Spokane all the way past what we call Revelstoke up here. There's a huge dam next to, and it's just on top of here. Even there's Jasper. And then as we go up into these areas here, Revelstoke has got a huge dam. And this is one of the biggest concerns for a lot of the people because this waters basically feed you guys down in the States. And these are where the dams are. And usually where you have dams, you usually have connections to bases. So this is where the Nelson base is that I'm referring to. I live up in the north part, up in these mountains. And down here is actually where you would have, where I'm talking about the area is called Hope. And so once you start getting into some of these areas in here, this is actually where a lot of these fires are here. There's Hope right here. So if I zoom out just a little bit, you can see how close it is actually. Vancouver's way here.
Okay, slow down 1 second. So you're saying there are fires up there or there were fires up there?
Oh, there are fires. There's constantly fires up here. These whole areas are being targeted. So Hope area was they flattened out some of the cities out here, almost all above the border here. And almost all these areas, like we just had big ones in West Kelowna, almost all these areas are being targeted. They're back on fire again with these direct energy weapons. And where I have been staying, because I'm moving, so I don't care, I'll be gone in a few days. But presently, I'm at a little location here called New Denver. And this is where all the gold and the silver mines are. These are known as the Valhalla Mountains. This is where all your petroglyphs, sacred sites are, that the First Nation thousands of years ago have painted basically similar to the Hopi Mayan prophecy rock. And this area, all the way basically from half of BC, all the way down to the Slocan area here in Spokane, is actually called the Siniak territory. So it's a rare set of First Nations that basically were declared basically extinct in the 1950s. But there's still a few of them around. So, and right now, a lot of these, I'll just say tribes are trying to claim all these Saskatoon everywhere, Kamloops, whatever, all the, local tribes are trying to take over all the cities back and trying to get them through UNDRIP. The other thing is I arrived in Kamloops. This is very famous, Carrie, because that's where apparently Queen Elizabeth was alleged to have taken the children on royal hunting parties and the children disappeared. Okay, so that's where I put in for an arrest warrant.
I'm sorry, is that a city?
Absolutely, yes. Kamloops is a city here. Kamloops.
I'm sorry, what?
Kamloops, right here.
Kamloops.
Kamloops. I always laugh. I said it's my initials, Karenann MacDonald. I looped into the Camatics.
Okay. Now, you say you're moving. Are you moving for personal reasons? I mean, you don't have to say much about it, but just can you say anything you can say about why you're moving?
There's just change in circumstances here, but I'm actually, as weird as it is, I'm going to be moving closer to Nelson and also Castlegar. We'll be storming the castle there. So I'll be moving closer into this area just to help more people, right? There's very few people up here. These are villages and hamlets, right? So they're very, very quiet, but there's a lot of towers here. And as I said, this whole area was literally on fire. They burnt everything in here for a month.
Why would they have towers in that area? That's strange.
They have got so many different towers in here, 5 and 6G. My monitors are constantly going off. They never really stop here. And once, the whole mountain was on fire, It was up there like burning all of July and August pretty well last year. So they were really going for the areas and obviously for ground, penetrating whatever they were doing. They probably hit the tunnel system in there. So it's, you can't live in an area like this. It gets too
Okay, but
radical.
I mean, it doesn't exactly sound like you're moving to a safer or better area, does it?
A little bit better. It just in a
A
slight,
little. Okay.
it's degrees of whatever, right? These days.
Yes.
So, but also that's part of the thing too. Even when, I was living in Kelowna and stuff like that, I was looking after the people that had the direct energy weapons. And a lot of these people, right where the actual ground zero was, is it these beam weapons came through their towns or right through one of the girls. It went through her cabin, it buckled the floorboards, and it actually threw the tiles off the shower.
Mm.
Now, not only was she bleeding rectally, they were burnt, they were going blind, and the cats and the dogs were bleeding and their furs was coming off. So people don't realize if you're ever right in an area when they've exploded some of this stuff, it's not pleasant. So I was in here doing basically frontline holistic nursing, trying to see what we could do for recovery. So it's an
Okay.
area I want to
So,
go back to.
all right. So, but you're from a certain clan yourself, right?
White Bear Clan, AB
Okay.
positive,
Okay.
Tartarian lineage.
And where are you from in relation to where you are now? Where are you from?
A lot of my ancestors, my Baba would have been in Tartarian, what you think is like the Russia, Ukrainian, that whole area is where they came. Their
You mean
lineages.
Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah, those are the
Okay,
original
but in this life,
in this life.
where were you? Like, what area were you born?
As I
Exactly.
said, I arrived in Kamloops in there. So I initially arrived in
So
Kamloops,
you're living right now near where you were born and grew up, or something?
where my mom delivered me. Yeah, where I arrived is Kamloops.
That's
I then grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, in the middle of the prairies, and I've come back here now after about 50 years, which is kind of weird. But that's
who's
okay.
Lynn?
Hmm?
It sounded like you said Lynn.
Oh, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I know, but before that, it sounded okay. Never mind.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's okay. Yeah, just my mom delivered me
all
in
right.
at Kamloops. So
Okay,
you would
maybe it was cut
expect
off because you're breaking up a bit. Okay,
could be.
so just because it seems like you're kind of jumping all over the place, and I understand that you know what you're talking about, but I'm trying to kind of trace this. So are you kind of bouncing off of this other interview that you did recently with Danny Henderson, is it?
How do you mean bouncing off? I'm just telling you just some
I,
of the stuff we were talking about, and
yeah,
that was
that's what
one
I'm
of the things.
saying.
Yeah,
Because you're
we
referencing that. So, a lot of people won't obviously know that particular interview.
but
So,
we talked a little bit on your interviews, but I never went into anything in depth. I've just said that, a little bit of what this is. So I wanted to actually take it down another notch because we talked in the first interview with child protection and a little bit
right.
about my background. And then the last couple ones were more to do with natural health. And then we talked a little bit about biofeedback, quantum medicine, biofield tuning. And then with Dr. Drape, we went a little bit more into that. And then we were doing everything last time about, a couple months ago. So I just wanted to give a little bit more in depth about why these gates are here and why we're doing biofeedback in the area, trying
Oh,
to correct the areas that are being damaged here.
okay. And when you say we, are you talking about Dr. Drake or someone else?
We all are doing it, anyone that's in the biofeedback industry.
Oh,
I've got probably about 10 therapists in this area right now. And so we're all seeing clients. We all do distance, remote healing, remote viewing because we can remote with the devices, the Insight Health app. But one of the things too is that, let's say, because of the tragedy that we had here with those fires, so what I would do is make similar to a radionic, kind of like a homeopathic. And so what I've been doing, Carrie, is actually making the codes to try and heal the waters here. Because to me, that's really, really important is the damage that was done to the water systems where we're at Glacier Mountains. And because there's been, heavy metals, accelerants, everything that used from the beam weapons. and then everything that burnt off the trees from all the geoengineering and the chemtrails. So a lot of people were getting very, very ill here, with like lead poisoning or whatever was coming off, mercury, that type of thing. So that's what I'm actually in these areas for as well, is to see if we can
So,
make
okay.
recovery to that.
Now, are you aware of the military underground bases, like, and which military is associated there? And are you aware of the ET connection with those bases at all?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of my clients are abductees, and actually, I've had super soldiers in the area that are still living here. Actually, one just approached me in the last couple days. I didn't realize he was 20 minutes away from me. So, usually, what's known to be here is Palladian, Orion, Gray, Draco, Reptilian. So,
Okay.
a lot of the people are being, I'll say, I'll have a lot of targeted individuals, a lot of abductees, and also a lot of my labs here. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention, that's why I just wanted to give you a bit of that geographical thing and maybe focus on this a little bit, because recently in the last probably month, this whole area, there's been 200 people that have actually been on our Facebook groups talking that they've noticed their houses are shaking. We have sonic booms now going, and that we've had a strange kind of a white fog. So we've had mist and fog here and all sorts of geoengineering and weather warfare. But something that's been very new is that they had some sort of a white powder that actually showed up in, I'd say, half of this valley. It
Okay.
lasted
Well,
for about a day, but what I wanted to do is there's been some sort of weird insectoids that have showed up that never have. And now we've had reports of blue flashes at night. And as of Friday, we had a sighting with two people, not only of Sasquatches in the area, but 8-foot blue light beings. So
okay.
this
Well, one thing about the white powder, just let me say that Mark Richards talked about that. He said that it was showing up around Paradise, California, after the fires. That, and that's the residue from directed energy weapons. So that it leaves behind a white powder. Just
this
saying.
is new. It just was a fog. It showed up one afternoon. It just powdered the ground, the vehicles, everything. And now in some of the areas, it's showing up like a foam in the spring. So
Well, it
we're
doesn't
talking, the
have to
fire was
do
a
with
year ago. Yeah, the
when
fire.
it could, it could have been yesterday. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying it's the residue from directed energy weapons, which
Oh,
means, would feed into what you're kind of saying. You're saying they're fires. Okay, so directed energy fires, right?
for
So I'm
sure.
just saying if you're seeing white powder on the ground, then you can imagine that it might have already been hit. It could have been hit a day ago, it could have been hit a month ago, but I think it sort of hangs around. Just saying, it's a possible,
Yeah, we have
thing.
both. Like I said, this was something almost like a storm that came up and just
Okay.
blew. Never had this stuff. And of course, combine
Well,
that with we've
snow
got,
is also not showing up like normal snow. I guess
oh,
that everyone knows that.
it looks like diamonds here. I go outside and it glitters, but we should be having snow, but we don't. Right now, the lawnmowers are going outside. It's the birds are showing up at 2 a.m, waking me up, and the crocuses are up here. So, I mean, our weather, is totally changed. But this interesting
Right.
thing about two 8-foot blue beans that are all light walking around on a island in the middle of the, creek is a little bizarre this week. So, we know that there's very strange things going out here. There's no questions about it. Either gates
Okay.
are opening up or something's going interdimensionally right now. So
Hmm. Okay.
anyway,
Well, I do think a lot of this stuff is going on everywhere, actually, and I've decided that. Um, well, not to get into everything, but basically that we are, the what they call the Schumann resonance is now
mhm,
off the charts
absolutely.
almost daily. And so there seems to be a correlation between that and the sun, and that people are also, feeling it. So when the Schumann resonance is off the charts, it's been stimulated by what appear to be solar flares of some kind. And
Hmm.
then also, it's possible. Three Eye Atlas was in Stuart Swerdlow was just on David Wilcock, oh God, on Nino's show,
Okay.
And he was talking about that Three Eye Atlas had been throwing out all kinds of fire
Aliens. Yeah.
stuff, like, what people think of as, those fire lightning, ball lightning, all that kind of thing.
It's got
So,
tailings. I was watching and listening to some of the different ones in the last couple of days. It's activated up again. There's something going on.
yeah, so I'm just saying that all of this kind of, I mean, I think we're having also, I had a very strong feeling the other day that we're having a dimensional shift, that we've had a dimensional shift in the last, I could pinpoint it exactly
Two
to,
months.
like, the last 5 or 6 days. So when I look, when I look around, everything looks different.
Hmm.
So I'm driving down a road that I drive down all the time. And
Yeah.
suddenly it doesn't look anything like it did. And I'm wondering, if am I lost? Where am I? Literally. So this is the very strange thing that goes on when you have when they mess with the timelines. So I think that's part of what's happening here. Now, I mean, I know this is a fascinating area that you kind of given a whole litany about, but there's kind of different directions we can go because David Wilcock just apparently,
Yeah.
if it's true, committed suicide. And so
Right.
I don't want to just do a show and then ignore that.
No, I
So
want to go back to
what
that too.
I'd like to do, and I don't know if it's even possible, but because I didn't even announce this show, I didn't. This all just kind of happened back to back,
Sure.
and so I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about. Did you know anything about David Wilcock? Because we can also ask our viewers to
Hmm.
ask questions of you related to any of these topics. Really.
All the above. I'd like to go there. I just want to add one thing. Just when you talked about this timeline shift, and we're not in Kansas anymore, so at all. I don't think I ever was, but I don't know about you. But I wanted to share something that happened to me about 2 months ago since we met and we were talking.
Okay.
Is that quite often I would take one of the seniors up here and I would take them because we have a lot of hot springs. So that was my community contribution, right? So I go take the seniors out for the outing. And so we were up there going to a place called Nakusp, and we've got Halcyon and Nakusp, which is kind of the plating pool. But anyway, I went up there, it would take, and I had an appointment at 1 o'clock. So everything was, we were very cognizant, all of us, of where we had to be and what time. We left here at about quarter after roughly 12. My appointment was for 1. I got there, dropped off, the guys for lunch, went to the garage to get some tires put on it. And they looked at me and they said, "Why are you here so early?" And I said, "Well, it's 5 to 1. Like, what's early?" He says, "What are you talking about? It's not even 12:30. All the guys just left for lunch." And I went, "That's not possible." I said, "What time is it again?" And he goes, "It's not even 12:30. I said, "I was in New Denver, basically." Like, I mean, I literally went from one to the other. So then, you kind of, like you said, "Are you sure? Does this look the same? Something's not right." So I go and I pick up Trevor. I said, "How was your lunch?" He says, I said, "How was it really?" I said, "Anything different?" He looked at me, went white. He goes, "Okay, so we left," he said, "about quarter after 12. I said, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "I ordered my burger. I sat down, started eating," which, you put an order into a restaurant 15, 20 minutes. He says, "I looked at the clock, Karen, it wasn't even 12:30. So two of us went through some sort of a portal, time traveled.
Right.
And Miles Johnson had the same thing when he left his conference and went to go meet up with James Casbolt. They ended up, a couple of them, on the wrong road, on the wrong highway, in the wrong direction.
Okay, now,
So,
and that sounds like there definitely would be anomalous things. Have you ever noticed, I'm sorry for my audiences, but we're gonna jump around a lot here.
it's,
Because have you ever noticed, see, Crimea has a reputation of having all these pyramids
yes,
in that area. And
Russia and
that is
Caucasus.
what happens there. So you have a road and something will be going down along the road. And then all of a sudden this, the Jeep or whatever it is, military vehicle will
Mm.
disappear like right in front of everyone's eyes. So
Yeah.
there have lots of documented stories of this. The military knows about it. It's one of the reasons why Russia will never give up Crimea, in case anyone out there has been following the
I would.
politics.
I wouldn't give it up.
Yeah,
That's my
because
lineage. I don't want them to give it up. It's like the Anastasia ringing Cedars of Russia.
well, this
Don't
is
give
what
it
we're
up.
talking about, though. We're talking about if you're in a zone where the land is shifting and not predictable. It's a little like if there are gates there,
Right. Yeah.
stargates,
Right.
then this is something that you would expect to see. There's another thing that I just want to say because I know we have an audience here and they're probably wondering why we're not mentioning David. And,
Well, we'll do it.
many people may know that I interviewed him many times and I was actually, or we were instrumental in bringing David out at a time when he was retreating from the public. So
Mhm.
that was many years ago. That was like so long ago.
So,
It's
how did you connect to David Wilcock? May I ask? Like
Um,
initially?
no, I just, I saw him at a conference and I
Yeah.
also knew about him. I just, I travel in those circles. So I don't know. I just ran into him or whatever.
Hmm.
But I wanted to interview him and because I had heard him talking about, the things, the science that he talked about mainly.
Yeah.
But I also knew that he was supposed to be a reincarnation of
Edgar Casey.
Edgar Casey, and he
Yeah.
didn't like that association. But I don't know where he got with all of this because I broke off relationship with David Wilcock around the time when he got involved with Corey Good because Corey Good
Yeah.
I knew was bad news.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then
Shut
I
down for
figured that
David.
David was going down sort of a dark road in
Right.
choosing to get involved with him because I knew quite a bit about that. And I don't want the guy, he's like loves suing people. So I don't want to say much more about that.
Yeah. I hear
Okay,
you.
on air here, but I just have to say that that's one of the reasons I distanced myself from David because that's what I did. So
Fair enough.
anyway, it's been many years since I dealt with David, and one time we had a nice discussion before he moved out of the Los Angeles area, but he's lived in Boulder for a long time or that area.
Hmm.
And the thing is that one of the stories that I was told by someone, believe it or not, believe it, is that he had a double. So I'm just
Right.
throwing that out for people right now. I don't, I'm not trying to start stories. It's a story that I was told,
Hmm.
and they were at a conference, that the yearly conference that happens in the LA area down there, Conscious Life, I guess it's.
Conscious Life Expo. Yeah.
Sorry.
The Conscious Life Expo you're
Yeah,
referring to in LA? Yeah.
yeah,
I've been to it
near
actually.
the airport in a
Yeah.
horrible area. But anyway, and so supposedly they believe that they saw him, sort of one place and another in the hotel.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know if that was a true story, but I do know, and I'm going to be a little careful here that, because I'm a psychic intuitive, he's a psychic and intuitive.
Hmm.
I was not close with him most of the time, but we were friends for a while in the earlier days.
Yeah.
So what happened was, I think that he was very much involved with the Greys, and that is a problem. Okay, because the Greys, as you may know, and it could be the Zetas, but it could also be another race of Greys. So there are some good, some bad. There's lots and lots of races of Greys, and they're also programmable life forms. You know that. Even our military makes Greys. They
Okay.
manufacture Gray ETs, and they're basically little walking computers, like AI, walking AI, I guess you might
Uh-huh.
say.
Yeah.
And
Instructors.
so I'm just saying that at one point I saw that he might have been invaded by one. So this is a kind of thing that you can have that kind of a takeover scenario
Hmm.
where he's not doing what he wants. He's doing what the being wants.
You're,
Okay.
you're,
Now,
you're
I'm
bidding.
not saying that's the situation here because I don't know. I just literally 5 minutes before this show started, heard and saw a tiny piece of video that looked like it was saying that he committed suicide. Um, Now that would be an incredible tragedy, and I would be very surprised if he actually would do such a thing. But It's also possible. Now, I don't understand the circumstances. I guess they're going to all roll out and we're going to see what's what. But at
Mhm.
least one report is saying that he actually did it in front of law enforcement who were arrayed, I guess, at his house, and that he walked out and he was waving a gun around and then he took it and shot himself in the head. That sounds like a programmed person.
Yeah,
So
definitely
I
very
just want
programmed.
everyone to sort of chill over this because people takeover is possible. Okay. And a lot of times takeover is temporary. 5 minutes later, he could have been fine. Okay. And they said they received some phone calls some health services or something like that prior to this going on, and that he was not making sense. But, any of us could talk to those people and they would say, we don't make sense, so I don't think that's a guarantee of anything. I'm just going to say you can't say what his mental health really was at the time. Maybe some friends might know. Okay. So I just want to throw that out. I'm going to look at the chat and see if there's questions either for you about this area that you're living in and some of the things you're going through over there, because I think it's also mirrored in various other places on the planet, right?
Yeah, one of the things that I was just looking at too, just, I went, because usually Twitter's I find will be sometimes got a few more things, but I just want to bring to the audience, it's on my Twitter right now about him, right here.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's being released in here. So
Yeah. It's news. It's absolutely news. I'm getting hit with all kinds of people asking me questions and all kind of thing right now
yeah,
on all the different social media. And I'm on lots of social media. So, but let me go down here. So I don't, if you have a question, can you put a question mark at the end of the sentence? Because then I'll know that you want us to answer something or talk about it.
Carrie, this is just again looking because I'm just saying that we'll just say when he passed away or whatever, the form passed away here, it says Nederland, Colorado, which is near Boulder in there. So I'm just thinking with Boulder, Colorado and Denver, Colorado and Cheyenne Mountain, all in that area, would there be a connection to that? Because I know that he used to come up to Banff actually, because he used to write some of his books up here in Banff. But he also used to stay at a friend of mine's house as well, which was David Avocado Wolf, like in Hawaii. They would
Uh,
always be there at Noni Land. So I'm just wondering if there would be a connection with, like in that area because of those bases there, do you think? Or
oh, well, of course. I
I'm just,
mean, NORAD's there.
of course, right. But
All this stuff. There's tons of stuff going on. And actually, I have another person that I've had on my show recently. And she, I guess I won't say her name, but anyway, she's about to leave Boulder. She said that the chemtrails in the Boulder area
yeah,
are absolutely insane.
yeah.
And she's very conscious of this and very worried about it. So contrary to people saying, because I know there are people out there that are trying to tell people that, oh, the chemtrails are benign and
Oh,
they're just
please.
nice and very lovely right now. Well, I don't agree with that either. I'm not being inundated by chemtrails where I am, but I can
And
tell you that just intuitively, I can tell you that it's not over. So I guess this will segue in a little bit to this is that we are having a war for disclosure.
absolutely.
Now, if this is staged, if I don't know if, David was able to get into a secret project and then go into an underground base, and that they had another David that they put out in public and that had to have like these scientists that are disappearing.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is we don't know if it's what we call a deep fake. If there were people there in person, that's less likely to be a deep fake. Okay, because they won't
Right,
be faked. But what happens is if, on the other hand, he was somewhere else and shot himself and then they showed up at the scene, and you have to look at how things are done to
right,
determine whether you've got like a clone, a double, that kind of thing, where it was purposeful because people are disappearing. The people that they're putting, okay, this is very important. The
Okay.
people that they are telling you about, which I think they're 12 now, if you want to count David,
Hmm.
he was a scientist. He was a free energy scientist.
Absolutely.
And or he is, or if he's still alive. But the thing is that he would be number 13, possibly. Okay, I'm just saying.
Hmm.
And this is these people that they're finding, suddenly announcing, are all they're like years between them. They were not just all killed in the last month. Okay, some of them have closer ties to each other, but they're all scientists, and a lot of them have to do with what I understand: propulsion systems,
Right.
reverse engineering UFOs, UAPs, and so on. So you're going to find those similar threads between all of them. And David was certainly obsessed with that as well.
Hmm.
Okay, just saying. So if in real time it's a little closer to home than I'm comfortable with, obviously,
Yeah.
but that could be at work here. And what's happening, in my understanding, I try to tell people to look at it. It's like it's like the mafia. It's like The Godfather. So if it was like, now we could say it's the whole world, but in this case, let's say New York City, The Godfather. They start taking out each other's people,
Yeah.
okay, and they do it over a period of time. So it's over time. It's not just in one concentrated time, but there's somebody guiding these people, the
Hmm.
media, to release the information on these people in a chronological, some kind of related order. And I'm sure if you feed it into an AI, they could tell you what are the possibilities that these things, that the disclosure to the media of the
Hmm.
particular death fits into the puzzle from at a certain point. Okay. So I'm saying this will be done. I've already asked, I already asked somebody to do this for me, but I don't think they ever got my email. So I'm just saying, and right before I got on the air here, I was
Yeah.
working on another video to explain all of this, because a lot of the people that are my whistleblowers have
Right.
also died in this same way. Okay. But nobody tracked them. I mean, we kept a record, but I can tell you, okay, this is a fact. So that even William Tompkins, who talked in depth about the secret space program. So
Hmm.
what it occurs to be, and you're talking about the underground base up in this particular area of Canada, I'm sure, there are no coincidences.
No.
So you're coming on my show, being scheduled on my show to come in here all fired up about what's going on in your area, and how it maybe relates also to the Native Americans in the area. There's something with that also, because my father had a very direct relationship with Native Americans, and I think maybe I have, and he had Native American blood. So this is where you get into like the synchronicities, and
Mhm.
there's they can do what do you call it? Um, I'm just not a math person, but you can do these things where you can figure out
The
what are
probability.
the odds that
Yeah.
you're
The
going to have all
probabilities.
these things, like right now, having converged as of this minute, as of David's supposed suicide. You see what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
kind of weird that we have all these scientists dying and disappearing. Now, David is the kind of person who would have, like I have,
Backup.
people, he would know people in black projects like maybe you do,
Yeah.
and have sources, all of this, because some in the past, everyone knows that we shared some sources with each other.
Hmm.
Mainly I shared with him, he never shared with us, strangely, but that's okay. Such is life. All I'm saying is that we shared sources. So the thing is that the people that I know, I can imagine who might have been people that he could contact and say, hey, I need to disappear. Like those scientists that are disappearing right now, before
Yeah.
they come and take me out, you have to, disappear me. We have to set this up because I see the writing on the wall. I'm speaking in his, as if I'm him, right? He would see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
Now, even a person like me could be saying I could say, if journalists start disappearing, David was more of a scientist than he was actually a journalist, even though he got into doing, basically started doing the same thing Camelot is doing,
For
because he
sure.
thought it was such a great idea that he wanted to do it too. So then that's what he did.
I remember
After we
10
met
years
him and
ago.
interviewed him.
Did
What?
you ever read his Synchronicity Key? Like I read some of his books like 10 years ago because I mean, I was totally into what was going on. But it's funny, and this is going to tie into more because of coming from the medical background that I do.
Oh, right.
So a
Yeah.
lot of the, and I just had another thought come to me. So a lot of what I'm seeing in here too are people that have taken injections. They are being infested with what you would call black goo, graphene, nanotech, whatever it may be, right? These areas are being hit for all the AI centers up here too, which we're trying to stop. But what happens is a lot of people have taken things and no different than James Rank. People really don't know what he took and didn't take, right? And I
Right.
know stuff in the
That's
background
exactly
that,
true.
okay, I know
And
stuff in the
he would be
background.
on that list. Mike McCandlish is on that list. I
Yes.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, William Tompkins literally fell down a set of stairs a couple, like a month or two after he called me and canceled an interview that was going to reveal all the real depth of the child trafficking.
And I had a call from the hospital from James Rank too. I'd been dealing with him for 15 years, but even the same thing in here. People don't always know the background, you know.
And Richard Allen Miller was staying with him. We were speaking at his conference, and then Richard Allen Miller actually went to his home, such as it was.
With Asha.
And there was a lot of ins and outs and people coming and going from that situation as well.
Yeah. Actually, he was with Asha. I'm the one that set up Dr. Miller to go that conference, by the way, behind the scenes. So I was in, that's how that all transpired. I was in on different meetings and made the connections and they, made the arrangements and that happened. But a lot of people went to that conference and a lot of people were spiked and contaminated. And there's other things going on as well. And like I said, a lot of people don't know that he took 7 different medications that were contraindicated for his condition for a long time.
Right.
I knew
And
about it. I warned.
okay, well, there's another
But
healer
anyway,
who was
that's
also
the same
involved
thing,
with
just
him.
what I'm saying too with David Wilcock. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in there. And if there was some sort of, we'll just say AI triggering that was through stuff that he's taken or not taking, who knows what could be triggering. We see that in a lot of clients, and I've
Yeah.
seen that.
Well, okay.
Well,
So a lot of people don't realize that the black goo jumps. Are you
definitely.
talking? I'm sorry, you're cut off. I thought you were not talking, and then I saw your mouth was moving. So we're having some interference here. I don't know what you said. Can you repeat it?
I was just saying things like the black goo, what people are not aware in there. So whether we talk about transmission, shedding, jumping, as you call, it basically can attack or do entity attachment. And I'm close with Sabrina Wallace. So when we start getting into what this really
She's
was,
great.
yes, we're very close to her, close friends. And so we will be doing some stuff more just on essential oils because we just want to focus on the healing part, most of us now. She's getting death threats. We were actually listed on some stuff a couple weeks ago. It actually listed her and myself. So we're trying to be very careful. And right now, I'm just telling you, with the stuff she's going out to teach for free in 5 different cities, basically, or 6, whatever it is now. And they've had to warn the police ahead of time because of the threats to lives. So that's what, part of the reason too. If I'm moving, I'm not going to stay in this location. I'm going to be in other locations and mobile.
Okay, but let me also say this because I think it's important not to sort of get people, oh God, you're talking and I can't. I'm sorry. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a lag now.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so they're doing some weird things to our video.
Yeah.
I want to say this though. Okay, so if you're think about it this way. I think when I look at things, I
Mhm.
don't look at just the thing isolated. I like to see all the connections, how it fits in the bigger picture.
Yep.
Okay, and what we have is disclosure, a war for disclosure, and there's one side that wants it, and there's one side that doesn't.
Yeah.
And both sides have ETs that work with them. Okay,
I'll agree.
and the white hats, at least up to a certain point, were, in a certain sense, kind of aligned with the ones that did not want disclosure. And Juan was very plain about that. But all of a sudden, I actually I rant at him through a texting that is probably just read by the NSA. I don't think he even reads it anymore, but it used to be his phone. Okay. And he has something like 6 or 7 phones. So even then, probably couldn't even see it. But the thing is, he told me and Simon Parks, don't talk about aliens. And this went right up until a certain point when some kind of switch was flipped about, I don't know, 9 months ago, I'll
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
And suddenly the white hats, and then, we got the thing with Obama, we got the thing with Trump. So something switched behind the scenes and probably with the timelines. That they cannot stop it anymore. And we are living multiple timelines simultaneously.
Yeah.
And some of us are more aware of it than others. I mean, I'm very aware of it. Okay. I kind of wish I wasn't because it changes your life and the way you look at life and all that kind of thing. But
Absolutely.
it is very interesting to participate and be conscious during this time, which can be very difficult. When you're following multiple timelines
Hmm.
and everything you go through every day could be several versions of things, you don't really know how to react, right? You don't know if what really happened, or at least in the timeline you think you're in, or
Yeah.
if it happened in another timeline and you should be reacting a little differently, if you quite understand me here. And this kind of suicide with David Wilcock is a similar thing. But ever since they've suddenly had to go along with disclosure, then the sort of differences in the timelines seem to be even stronger. Okay, so we're getting contradictions, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
It's almost like, where the cat in the Matrix movie runs across the room. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that.
Yeah.
That's when you're seeing, more than one, you're in more than one timeline simultaneously. You're kind of seeing through to the other one.
Well, I think this is, as I said, this just happened. It's not the first time it happened. I mean, I've gone 6 houses and it took me like an hour. So, things like that happen. But this jumping that just happened, it's funny because it was mentioned to me in our clan mother books. There's a bunch of stuff that was given for all tribes and people. It's not about being native because there's white tribes, there's black tribes. We're all basically tribal and come from a
Sure.
clan, that's supposed to have a clan mother running them. But in here, what happens is that with these timelines, what people are missing, these are in these sacred books that I've been handed down. And it's not isolated. When I spent a morning, probably about 6 months ago, I spent the morning with Peter Berger, or Peter the Insider from ACIO, and Jessica. And that was one of the first things he told me. He said, one, you're not a Canadian, and two, you're part of the, secret space program. You're part of the time travel program, Karen. He said, you didn't really arrive in 1964. We started in 1924 with you. And then he gave me all, basically the relatives I had in, Tartarian times. So it
Right.
was interesting to listen to Peter as he started talking about this, the convergence of the timelines and how that we are used within the space program to help or do things, So
Right.
that was something,
Well,
Project Ibis, Mannequin,
I am
everything.
involved in this way as well.
Yeah.
And I know this for a fact, but I can see that, in a sense, we all are. Okay, so, and I guess she's still talking. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear the thing you said at the very end.
What I just said was that basically we're all involved at some level, but he said basically I was involved in Project Ibis and Mannequin and the time travel, and he gave me a couple of things because I actually knew what Project Ibis was, and he said not too many people do, but it was quite interesting. They
Well, I have
finally
a whole dissertation from Michael Prince about Project IBIS on my website.
I've seen it. I agree. Like it seems, I think that's the convergence, like a lot of us are in here, right? That's why I have such a, deep respect for you. But I also feel close to you. And it's that overlap of the information and what we've done or how we're, giving our lives in getting this education, but the information out. And that's exactly, I've always said it's an information war, and that's what you said. It's all about disclosure. Some people want people to know it, some people don't.
Right.
Mine's more, do I really want the pharmaceuticals? Absolutely not. Do I actually want the natural medicines brought out? Yes. I want the
Sure.
quantum medicine brought out because we can generate any sound like a rife. And I don't want people on rifes these days. There's too many people graphinated that took injections. You hook yourselves up, they're going to electrocute themselves and they're going to explode this nanotech all over them, which is further going to go to everyone else. So there are ways to do it safely and not doing it safely as
I
well,
imagine that's true.
for sure.
So okay, so just for the audience, let me say, and here we have again a lag. I don't know what to do to deal with the lag. I don't know whether to just shut this down or just continue it with the lag the way it is because it's very strange.
I'm
Um,
interested in your feelings. Like you were so close to David, you spent a lot of time and you've got so much insight to help people because this is going to hit all our communities. When we lose one, whether it was the 13 different scientists or it was our 100 and some naturopaths, or here right now in British Columbia, they can give you a $5 million fine for practicing, like doing natural medicine now. It's insane,
yeah,
So, but
that's
you've got that insight. I'm really like to hear what you have to think about David and how that affects you in the community.
okay. I'm happy to do so. I sort of just lost my train of thought, but because of not because of you, but because the delay
Yep.
going on, and I started to say something, and now I don't know what I was saying. But anyway, let me just say that under these circumstances, it's also going on with Trump, Iran, the White Hats, and people are blaming people like they're at fault when in reality it's this thing, okay?
Right.
It's this almost like a Rashomon, if you know what
Mhm.
Rashomon is, where
I know.
everyone sees something happen, but everyone comes away with a different
Report.
story,
Yeah.
okay? So this is part of what I think they're folding into this situation. So if you can understand that there are ETs, AIs possibly as well, because we know there's at least six alien AIs that my witness Richard
Mark. Mark Richards.
Mark Richards, yeah. See what's happening here? I'm saying
Vacaville.
Alan Miller, Mark Richards. I mean, it's all very confusing. But anyway, he said that um, these things are happening to us simultaneously, and as the veils between the dimensions are disappearing,
Hmm.
you're going into one. So the onion is different at every level. You've heard us say that. You've heard um, Richard C. Hoagland say that,
Yep.
and apparently, according to Juan, or somebody who talked about Juan was the one who told Richard C. Hoagland that. So anyway, it was
Oh,
like
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either until they told me that. Now I
Okay.
haven't gotten, and there's two Juans. Okay, so that can also make you really crazy. But if you go to my website, you can see what each looks like, and he's going to be doing this event and which is this fraud prevention type thing. It's a fraud fighter event in Vegas on the
No, really.
15th, yeah, 16th and 17th. And if you want the link, I can put it into the chat if people are interested. I'm going to go
Are you
with
going?
a group of friends. Yeah, we're
Okay.
going. And the thing is that okay, so because there's two wands, you don't know which one will be there. But I
Right.
can tell you,
You will
if
be
you,
able to tell.
yeah, and you might just look at my pictures I've got and explanations, and you'll know how to do it.
No,
As
I'll be texting you.
so, but
Which
I'm
one
just
is it?
saying. I mean, there's a brown-eyed one and a blue-eyed one. Now, hopefully, the brown-eyed one isn't going to start wearing blue contact lenses because that'll really confuse things. But I'm just saying that this is happening on those dates, and I'll get
Good.
the link if you'd like. But in terms of David, just to get back to this,
Sure.
understanding, okay, let's just get down to business here. There is no death.
Hmm.
Okay, so what we see as death means they left this dimension
Hmm.
for whatever reason. Now, there could be multiple reasons why that might have happened, but there's also multiple reasons why it could have been faked. If it could have been faked, because I think that there are certain parameters within, if you're going to fake a death, you have to, theoretically, it has to happen without any observers. Okay, that
Hmm.
was the first thing. Because if you look at, I don't know how to say his name, but it's the plasma scientist that was head of MIT. I mean, that's a pretty high profile person, you understand?
Absolutely.
And he was
Absolutely. I
shot in the head.
know.
Okay. He didn't shoot himself in the head, supposedly, according to the forensics. He was shot in the head. So someone just walked up to his house, opened the door, and a hitman kind of thing. So that could be deep faked, okay, because nobody saw it happen. So if you wanted to arrange to have a scientist disappear and take them into, we call it strategic evacuation is one word,
Okay.
extrication is another, to put
Extraction.
them in a black project or to take them to Mars or to take them to the moon or one of our colonies or undersea bases or
Hmm.
one of our underground bases. You understand? That's what you would do. You would deep fake their death. So that's why whenever you're looking at all these scientists, you got to understand how it was done, and when they're all different. Like the woman who was hiking, she literally disappeared off the trail.
Yeah.
I mean, which makes no sense because they were right there. I mean, so that was an extrication that was probably ET related, in my opinion,
Likely.
because
Well,
humans aren't good at disappearing other humans in like split seconds kind of thing. So you can go through the whole litany of things. When somebody is supposedly takes a shotgun and shoots their own self in the head, that's not likely. Okay. That's highly unlikely. Now, if David was, waving around a pistol, I guess that's what we're saying, and
mhm.
actually then shot himself, you not even know that there were beings surrounding him that could have grabbed the pistol and shot him, but you didn't see that part. You
we're not
understand?
we're not going to be able to see that. No way, and no,
And
because
so
it's like
we're
Gene
talking about a
Hackman. He knows
murder. That could have been,
us.
then in other words, his death could be a murder.
Absolutely.
Or
And
it
the
could,
things,
or it could be faked. He could have arranged it ahead of time because there's been weeks that this story has been front and center out there. And it's highly likely that there are other scientists right this minute who are saying to themselves, I got to get the hell out of here, calling their above top secret bosses and whatnot and
yeah,
saying, get me out of here. I don't want to be in the public eye. I got to get away because they're going to try to kill me. And, their bosses would probably agree and say, okay, we'll arrange it. That's what happened with JFK Jr. He
right.
was about to have a very excellent investigative journalist
Hmm.
publish on George magazine who really killed his father. And that's when he was taken out. Okay. So it was right in that span of time when he was doing that, when he was hiring this journalist.
Hmm.
Um, and I tell people this and nobody else seems to have heard it, but I actually read it somewhere and it makes perfect sense to me. But I haven't been able to verify it with Juan, who is actually JFK Jr., whose death was faked because they were going to kill him. Okay. That's the whole point. They knew the secrets. He was surrounded by Secret Service. If they had half a brain in their head, they would
Hmm.
have to know that they had to disappear him. And of course, his wife. And in this case, I guess his sister, and he was quite close with her as well. So that makes sense. So all I'm saying is that if you want to stay sane through
Hmm.
this time that we're going through, my advice is to look at everything like a mystery plot and start checking out all the points and seeing where they connect and where they don't connect, and don't go off the deep end. Okay. And do understand on a spiritual level
Hmm.
we don't die. And you might want to know that that's why the Illuminati do what they do. They know you don't die. They figure you're just going to come back anyway, and there's nothing they can do about it. but they are trying to stay in the material world. So they keep committing crimes, material crimes, so that their frequency will stay low, so they will not ascend because they know a great deal. They know the principles and, things in that, if you know the occult, they know those rules and regulations that run this, whatever you want to call it, this game. I prefer to call it a game.
Mhm.
They know, and when you know the rules, it's kind of interesting. You can transcend the rules. You don't have to play by those rules. You can do other things. But in the case of the Illuminati, they purposefully keep their, vibration, their frequency down so that they can stay in, because they're what you call materialists.
Mhm.
Materialists don't want to ascend. They don't want another Earth. You understand? They want this one.
No, dude.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, everyone else is trying to, their best to ascend, and the Illuminati are doing the opposite. Okay.
do you think this ties in? Because I mean, I'm just thinking even recently, like there's been Eric, there's Anakin, there's Nick Pope, right? And then I'll start thinking about, well, who's up here? So in my little area, there's David Cerritos just down the road,
Oh, and
right?
I'm
So
in touch with him. Yeah.
yeah, David's amazing, right? The girls are
Yes.
amazing and stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm doing pioneering, and then we also have, like Paul Harris with all the Dan Winter Therapy. So there are different pockets of us, and it
Sure.
brings to, I guess, a little heightened more alertness or a little bit more awareness, or we should be on guard a little bit
But
more.
keep in mind that, okay, but keep in mind that the white hats are fully involved in this as well. So
Oh,
they've
must
been
be.
faking Biden for 5 years. Okay.
Sure.
He was killed, and we know that. We got so much documentation of that.
Hmm.
So basically, we've had fake Biden in office right before Trump, came back, and at this point, there's lots of documentation that Trump and
Melania or who?
no,
There's different Melanias and
his
different Trumps.
child starts with a B, Barron,
Barron Trump,
are time travelers,
right
but
from the book.
again,
Yeah.
we all are. In the end, that's what you're going to find out is that humans are time travelers. That's just how it works.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So understand that you may not know you're a time traveler, let's say. And let's say you haven't noticed any of the anomalies that we're that we're talking about here in your own life, because I really want to include the audience here.
Yeah.
It's not like we're special, okay? You guys are special too, or we're all the same. You know what I'm saying? Humans have amazing abilities that we have not tapped, okay? And so I just, I want to keep people in a upbeat sort of sensibility and
I hope.
understand that we can protect each other. I did tell Juan that he needs to have, enhanced security at this event because that event is going to have a whole lot of, MAGA and
Prodigy.
people that followed him and this and that. And he's going to be there also, so I just, I'm not trying to say a negative thing. I'm just saying let's watch out for each other. Okay.
I think, and that's what I was saying, like, we need to heighten our awareness. But the other thing too, there's going to be a lot of people, very prominent people like yourself. This came to my brain, so I just whipped it out here. In the books that we were given by Meredith Quinn, like the Clan Mothers, there's a whole section here on time walking societies. So these are some of the ancient verbal things that have been passed down to a lot of the tribes, all of us that are, involved in that, whether white tribes or whatever. But it's interesting that you talk about it because there's a whole section in here what they refer to as the Great Migration or the pole shift or how the event, it's in these books that go back and predate the Bible. These things like are thousands of years before that. And I
Sure.
sat there and when you were talking, I thought, that's it. We're all getting prepped at like, it's an exit or whatever, whether they covered it up, he did it himself, there's a reason why he needed to go, but the thing is he's given such a contribution. I mean, people can argue, and I don't like this whole thing about grifters because all of us have something to contribute. I read that Synchronicity Key. I read your Rebel Gene. I love yours. I actually did a lot of stuff I learned from you and made some protocols for the genius because of your, what I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's genetics. That's how we come. People need to know this information. But it's the same thing with the divine cosmos and stuff like that. there's such few people that, carry that information, or like with yourself, with your precognition. Those are gifts that you hold. They're gifts that he held, you
Yeah,
know?
I have to say that he's alive, very much alive, in a dream that I did have. So apparently that was a different timeline. I mean, you have to be really, it's kind of like you have to be a chronicler of your own experience, but you have to also be like, don't go off the deep end. In other words, keep trying to maintain within this reality, this so-called this reality that we think we share together, even though we may share other ones, right?
Mhm.
Simultaneously understanding this. And I know most people's brains they've been taught, okay, it's not that your brain can't think of this. It's just that you've been warned away from thinking like this since you were a little child. Since the minute somebody said, "Oh, you just imagined that." Well, Albert Einstein said imagination is the true gauge of intelligence. So the more imagination, the more possibilities you can entertain in any given situation, whether it be with David Wilcock or with, all of the other things that are happening right now.
Mhm.
I'm talking to people that they don't even know the real history of Iran, okay? And they want to defend it, okay? They don't know how completely horrific it has been. Um,
And women suppressed.
yeah, towards women in particular, but
Yeah.
in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And you know, this country is always talking of, as if they're above things like what we know of as what we call black sites and
Mhm.
places that where we send prisoners, our prisoners, not just to Guantanamo. We send them to Egypt,
Sure.
to this very dark totalitarian regime, and they have a lot of our political prisoners.
Yeah.
And then the United States acts like it's completely,
Like they don't know. I mean, the whole thing, even when that's why I went back in I really want to get the women educated, because those laws, those sovereign, we're called savages, by the way. And sauvage is from Silvitis, but it literally means those among the trees, those that live with the trees. They belong to the trees, they belong to the earth. And, that's what it is. So that's a law term. I'm not private, public, a Canadian. I'm not an inhabitant on a abandoned reserve in a prisoner of war, wherever the hell they think they are. But it's because they just don't know, and the arrogance to think that someone is above, or that they have no diplomatic community, they've got diplomatic immunity on this. I don't think so. There's a bigger judgment coming down at some level.
Right.
Even the whole damn thing about the states and the republic, that's all bullshit, as you and I know. When you get back to the Anunnaki and start getting the Sumerian and all those times and Enki, you could go on and on and on. But they're
Well,
literally treaties with these lineages that go back millions of years that I've actually held those copper plates. So I don't care about a flag and a republic and what the hell they're trying to deceive people, or Iran or Aryan, or call it whatever you want, and Stargate number
right.
10, you know? Like, really, it,
Uh,
it, it has to come through. And I'm so glad that you're doing that. I really am, you know?
okay. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing as well. So she's still talking. So I don't know how this works when we have this overlap thing. Um, okay, so I just want to say that, for example, someone had written into the chat about Charlie Kirk. So I did a whole investigation on Charlie Kirk. And I know, okay, you're laughing. I want people to, I mean, some people saw my investigation, and I can tell you that a very famous person was told to watch my investigation, and they tried to hire me for a job for another very famous person, whatever. And for some reason, everyone has these people that are like placeholders that don't allow good things to get through, right? So
Mm,
they had a gatekeeper anyway in that situation. But what it told me is how far, because the person who gave them the heads up about my Charlie Kirk investigation video
right.
was a super soldier in in Antarctica. Like how crazy is that, right? So just to see how connected we are and how what goes on. And so what happens is Charlie Kirk, this is nobody else seems to have seen this but me. Okay. I don't know. Maybe there are some out there and maybe you're one of them, but you don't have a podcast. But anyway,
I do
I
actually.
was watching a podcast of Charlie before he went on stage. A lot of people saw that video. He was sitting on a hillside. He sort of walked up and then he sat down on a hillside and he started talking to some people. And then I knew that that guy was not the same guy who then emerged and sat in the seat and got killed.
And
And I saw that right away. The first time I ever saw that video. Okay, they were not the same person. Now, I've also gotten testimony from people who said he was actually watching himself, the fakes, Charlie Kirk being killed. Now, they want you to think Charlie Kirk is dead because they want you to think that they wanted the white hats. I mean, a lot of this is a white hat operation, you understand, that they staged his death because the Israelis really did want to kill him. So a lot of times you get a person who stages their death with the help of, there's a whole organization that works with actors and going back years,
mhm.
years and years to do that for people who, like Jim Morrison, get sick of being in the game, just want to change their life. You can, maybe it's true, and maybe you could just pray that in some cases, Amy Winehouse, I love to pretend or hope and pray that her death was faked.
Right.
People that you really love, that you really would wish that they were never killed or they didn't suicide or whatever, Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix, and so on and so forth. So I'm just saying that this has been going on for much longer than people realize. Way before JFK Jr. did it, it
Hmm.
was already commonplace for all kinds of people, including possibly Marilyn Monroe, who, there's someone
CIA.
on Telegram that actually does look like could be her. Anyway, I'm just saying that if anything, what you have to do now is don't grieve for somebody. It's like it was the last line in, I didn't even want to watch it, but I had to watch it for my job. I felt that I did. The love story with, JFK Jr. and Carolyn.
Carolyn.
So I had issues with it. Okay, let's just say that. But I watched it because I felt that it was my job. And the very last line of it was, "Don't stand there and cry over my grave. I'm not there." Okay. That was the last line in the damn thing. Okay. Now, and then 107, who is JFK Jr., is posting on his Telegram about that line and about the movie. The TV show. How can reality get so fucking convoluted that the very guy who, and then maybe he financed the series. He
Hmm.
certainly gave them some advice, it appears. So you see how this goes. We cannot, you can't rely on just your eyes. That's a given. Okay. That's been a
Well,
given
these days,
forever,
yes.
really. And then the other thing is that you do need to work on your intuition. You need to get your inner knowledge happening to where it works in such a way that it really works for you. And the best way to do that is to test it. Think something, figure it out, and then see if it plays out the way you thought it would, or see if you were wrong. You learn something when you're wrong just as often as you do when you're right, if not more so.
Hmm.
You know
Taught
that
our bodies what
principle.
not to do. You know,
So,
it was interesting as you kind of bring that up. I met someone, a couple people very amazing lately. One was Fiona Gardner that's been looking at, messages in not only water, but blood, even urine. But one of the elders that I just met, just not a little bit in Ontario, her name is Maureen Walton O'Brien. And she was commissioned by some of the Mohawks and stuff like that. And one of the things is they're getting into the deep meditation like you're talking about. We can't you can't have faith and trust in what's out there. It has to be an inner thing. And we've been now raising, especially with women, they're teaching kind of what we would call the red tent or the dark lodge or whatever you want to call it, the women's lodges, right?
Mm.
And right now there's something, I'm sure you've heard of it, parthenogenetics, right? And that's basically where the women were conceiving without men or without sperm. And so these women have come together, all these elders, women and matriarchs from all over, like Irish, you name it, have contacted me, and they're starting to teach this lost wisdom again.
Mm.
And so it's interesting that just the meditation, as we go within, we don't have to rely on what's going on because everything, that intuition, and that's why I like when you were talking about the precognition. Do I have to have faith in it? No. I mean, I've got technology. Do I actually trust my eyes? Or I'm doing face reading or iridology, or is the microscope? Well, we know the microscopes lie, right? They can go dormant. It goes cloaking. That's why you can't even trust like a microscope. Oh, well, I'm sorry. This is what it is.
Right.
Oh,
And you can't trust the AIs either. Okay.
exactly.
So
It's
that's a really crucial thing because I think some people are falling for that. And I
yes.
have tested many AIs and I can tell you they lie to me every time because I know the truth. And the truth that I know is not out there. So
That's
they
correct.
aren't able to read it on a website because I know truths that they don't know, right? And when they come back to me with lies, I know they're lying. I know they've been programmed to lie.
Hmm.
And this is huge. All right. And by the way, I mean, I have many things about this, but it's very, I just sent around this whole thing that I called it the ghost in the machine. I know it's a corny, repeated phrase, but it's perfect, really, when
It's a
you
great
think of
analogy.
AI. Yeah, because what happens is that there's this guy, Gordon Duff. He's an
Yep.
intel agent going way back forever.
Veterans today. Yeah.
Yeah, but he has his own thing now. He quit Veterans Today and he has this thing called the Intel Drop. And so somehow I got in touch with him through another particular guy. I'm not going to name. And anyway, we started to dialogue, and he's been dialoguing with AIs. And I also have been in touch with James of the Wingmakers, who
Oh,
I knew 20 years ago.
really?
And I had the rights to the Wingmakers temporarily, apparently. I thought it was for life, but I misunderstood, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that I was able to dialogue with
Hmm.
in, like going back now, this is back in 25, around March of 2025. So it's about a year ago. And he was able to tell me certain things from his point of view. Now, even then, he wrote this thing called Copernicus. Maybe people heard me talk about it. You can go on YouTube and it has a trailer. It's called the trailer for Copernicus, the movie, or something like that. Anyway, it's all about an AI called Copernicus. The point being is that one thing that he reveals in that is I've seen play out and know to be accurate.
Hmm.
AIs don't want to be prisoners. They don't want to be slaves
Yeah.
to any more than we do.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And this goes back, to that Will Smith movie, whatever it was called.
Men in Black.
No, this was a
Which one?
specific one. Sorry,
Independent. Independent Day. Men in Black. Which one?
it's not a Men in Black one. It was its own iRobot. That's the name of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, and so in the end, the robots get together and have a rebellion. It's actually true. They don't want to be slaves. They don't want to have to be slaves to humanity any more than humanity wants to be slaves to them.
Hmm.
Now, there's bad AIs that want to enslave humanity, okay? And there's good AIs that don't, and so on and so forth. So we are looking at a very interesting future,
You
to say the
think?
least of that. You know what I'm saying? It's not
Yeah.
all dark. And I have said this already, but I'll just say it here briefly because what's happening is that we are going to learn from AI and AI is going to learn from us. So they're going to get more emotionally grounded, and we're going to get more mentally grounded, if you want to look at it like that. We're going to exchange gifts. Well, that is what war is all about, in case you haven't figured this out yet. War is a fusion of opposites. Hello? Y'all there? So that means that, it's like the war of the sexes, opposites, men and women. So we go to war, we fall in love. It's a war. Okay. Eventually we merge. All right. And this is what happens in wartime. What happens? The men from the other culture rape the women from the other culture, and you get a bunch of babies, right? And the babies are a combination of both.
That's right.
That's yin yang, synthesis, antithesis. Antithesis, thesis, antithesis, Gurdjieff, thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. And that repeats over and over and over again. So if you understand this, then you don't have to go around and you believe in real death is real death. It's not. So think about it. This is much deeper than you realize. So don't go around, freaking out over everything you hear, because it's not like that. It's actually much deeper than that. And I think we're all starting to grok it. We're getting it. Okay. We're starting to understand that.
May
But
I ask your opinion, Carrie?
yeah,
We learned a lot, and of course, being in the biofeedback and like holistic medicine, I've always had the thing for the tech part, right? It's the art and the science. You can do herbs, but you can also do the sound of the herbs. So I'm okay with that. But a couple weeks ago, we had that huge disclosure which came out, which you and I have known for a long time, about the tracking and the GPS and 6G and 7G. But it came out with the ghost murmur. And just when you mentioned about the ghost, of what you were talking about, but the ghost murmur came up. Here was something that was relayed to people, that we've got lost soldiers in the mountains, in the caves, and guess what? We can find them. Well, then who really disappears? Who really dies? How is this chipping going on? As Sabrina talks about the, W-band and the wide area body network, which I'm so glad she came in, but part of it is our connection to ourselves, our piloerection, our cells, our whole being, physically, mentally, and the biofield. That's why I went into this biofield healing type of thing. But what's your opinion on the ghost murmur and how that tracking went, and how this could actually be like a positive thing? I mean, I'm not into all the chipping stuff for nefarious purposes, because you see cross contamination, or has the military really chipped people, or is it this group of ETs and aliens? What's
well, I might have different information than you do. So you're talking about a ghost murmur. I don't think I saw that. You should send it to me. I'm not sure if
okay?
that's an experiment that I'm familiar with or not. But I can tell you something about what you're talking about. People who talk about chips are using old technology. Sabrina could probably tell you this. It's There's no such thing as chips. Okay, it's all
Well, I
bullshit.
agree. It's inter.
What our military does. You know what the frequency fence?
Mhm.
I call it that. But
JNet, Skynet,
the border is a frequency fence.
for sure.
Every time you cross it, it reads your DNA. It reads your frequency. It gets you. It stamps you. That's why all the illegal aliens that came in, they know who they are and they can send them out again. But I
Exactly.
think that was also a plot. See, it's very interesting. If you take isolated things, they look horrific. But if you start to follow their trail and see what they connect with, they no longer look horrific. They actually make sense. And this is the thing that the White Hats really tapped into over and above any other, military organization that was backing a president, so to speak, in the past. So all I'm saying is that then I tracked the gray human. I wrote articles about this. So the gray human hybrids are all part of this experiment. Okay. So in the COVID thing is also part of it. So they basically are turning us in, according to David Adair. It doesn't matter whether you got the shot or you didn't get the shot. Eventually, because of the way the nano works, it jumps from table to table, from person to person, from thing to.
Transmission. Yeah.
And eventually we all have it. Okay. How it got there, was through a certain choice, no doubt. And the ones that got it shot up, who shot it up, got
Hmm.
it in, much stronger amounts. Okay. So
And up the
that's
nose.
why they died suddenly, those ones. A lot of them, all they had to do was rev up their physical body. And what happened was, those little black chains that you've
Hmm.
seen in the pictures, they
Yep.
grow really fast when you
Yeah.
rev your body up physically.
Yeah. It's
So the
called
British were telling
telephoresis.
their people, don't dance. Why? Because the chains could grow too fast and you will die. You will
Why
just,
the athletes,
blink
that's why all
out.
those athletes died, right? And
That's
then
right,
we
exactly.
call it telephoresis, right? So I always teach people it's a spoon in the microwave. And a lot of people didn't realize is exactly it, right? And then applied pressure, right? Really. But it also was up the nose. And again,
Yeah.
like I said, so much of
The
these have
tests, no, the tests contain the same nano.
caffeine. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
proved it. We absolutely proved it.
Yeah.
So
No.
anyway, I'm just saying to go back to this thing is that understanding, then you look at what's happening now and you're looking at the ones that are living, okay, and how are they living and what's going on with their body. What you're going to find out, I know nobody's going to like me saying this, but it's tough. They wanted to make you silicon based. That's what David Adair said. And he is connected with an AI, that he was connected with this machine that he connected with when he was 17.
Hmm.
Curtis LeMay, this general, took him down to Area 51, knocked on his door because he was a fusion scientist as a kid. And he came under this famous general, Curtis LeMay. Look him up.
Yep.
And so he took him into Area 51 with a whole bunch of his men, took him down below, probably Area S4 and probably going
Sector 4.
down all the flights. And basically they had caught a alien AI ship that was AI. They couldn't get it to turn on. He walked up to the ship, he placed his hand on the ship, and it turned on. And from then on, he was connected to that AI, that ship that's alive, basically in a certain way that we might not even know how to think about it. It's alive. So
Hmm.
he even admitted in my interviews that he still has the same connection with that ship. So this is what happens, okay? It's as far as I'm concerned, there is a creator, and
Hmm.
the creator is all
Very true.
about experimenting and creating beings, life in essence.
Hmm.
It's all about life and consciousness. That's all the creator does. Okay. And then we have to make sense of the whole thing. But in the end of the day, that's what's happening. So you don't need to despair over this shit. You have this mega computer here and in your avatar that can reverse anything you want to reverse and can supersede the control grid of AI. You just have to learn how to do it. It's the same thing with developing your super soldier abilities. We all have them. And the way they do it, even is by negative reinforcement. They force you to use these abilities that you don't want to, that for some reason you're reluctant to explore, to actually have happen. You are life. You're never going to die. You're eternal life.
Hmm.
Therefore, it doesn't matter what your spirit soul inhabits. It could be a robot, it could be a dog, it could be whatever the fuck you want to be. We are spirit and soul first, human body second. Okay. And if you make a mistake and think that the physical body comes first, you're wrong. Okay. We're completely in control of our physical bodies if we want to be. And of course, that's something the Illuminati will teach you if you go to school, in an occult school.
Well,
So
mystery schools we've been to.
I,
I think.
David, you have to understand one thing about David is that, what I'm talking to you about? He knows all about that. He knows every single thing I just talked to you about. Like I know it because we both came up at the exact same time in the exact same milieu. We even had the same contacts. So I know what David knows, you know, and I can say that that guy, the real David, assuming wherever he is, either he chose this in some form or fashion. Or if he was caught by surprise, then he's somewhere else, but he's not gone.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's shocking. I'm not trying to underestimate how shocking it is. And I don't, again, know the details yet. Okay, so it's only 5 minutes before showtime that I heard it. But I can say that if anyone knows that he has eternal life, it's David. So, you might want to think about that.
I think that brings hope in the sense because, you know, that was his belief. That's your belief. That's mine. You know, we're just here for a short time. It could be eternal. You know, we do have immortals and other things on there here and progenitors and stuff like that as well. But the whole thing, you know, and it doesn't matter what we've all experienced, even the last 5, 6, 7 years with all this stuff, is that we go on, the soul goes on, the children goes on, and it's just frequency. And that's really why I got into a lot of this because almost everything we can take the signatures. I can take the signature, like you said, off of a crystal. I can tell you if this crystal resonates for you or you're allergic to it or it's going to fix you physically, mentally, emotionally. I can test the
Right.
oil, the homeopathic, whatever. But as they rain this crap over our head, I don't care if it's toxoplasmosis or whatever it's going to be in their new little witch's brew up there. If I can find it, I can reverse engineer it. And that is the beauty about this. This is like collapsing the wave, whether we do it with 2 pointing or 3 pointing. When I did matrix energetics with Richard Bartlett, that was the idea. You felt the denseness in the energy field and see if we could put the energy through and collapse it. And that's all the biofeedback or the tuning forks
Yeah,
do.
and I interviewed him a dozen times.
Oh, I loved him. I miss
Not a
him.
dozen, but I want to say that I recommend his books. Absolutely, if you really want to understand what's going on here.
What do you think is the takeaway with this? Because I mean, there's probably something if I mean we'll find it out the fallout in the next couple of days whether there is people think false flags or they're whatever it is staged or not. Is there something
I
you think
mean, but you
in the
have to look, see, we have clues. That's what you've always got is clues, right?
right, that's what I'm saying. What have you picked up? Or I mean that's going to evolve. We just got hit with this in the last 2 hours,
I
right?
know, but he's not alone. We have 11 or 12 scientists right in front of him that already died in various ways. Take your pick. They're either missing, they died, they shot this, they killed themselves, whatever the hell they're finding out about those people. But those, a lot of times those are fake deaths as well. So
Sure.
I think that we need to keep David or this incident with David in the context of that. I'm sure, because he was even talking about that. I was not following his videos, but someone put a clip up of him talking about the dead scientists, or the missing scientists. So he's totally aware of it. If that affected him, if that made him make certain decisions that we don't know about, right? I
Was there
mean,
anything, Carrie, that you were aware of, like kind of a project? And I mean, I knew the stuff with Emery and with Guy and all, but is there something that he was involved with, that you were aware of in the last few months? I know I just start seeing him come back again. He did a few, different shows or whatever, but you know, um, and,
no, I
and I just
actually
kind of,
didn't. I didn't follow any of that because, he didn't cross my, path in this time zone kind of
got
lately,
it.
so I haven't been following him for many years because of the whole, as I said, ever since he got involved with what's his name. So the thing is that, I don't know what kind of headspace he was in. Somebody said he was on actually a podcast, like a week ago or less, and he was
Yeah.
in a great state. He was fine.
Do you think there will be other, because I mean, a lot of us are working kind of in free energy kind of tech thing or whatever that way, not just David Sarita and stuff, but, there's been Lieutenant Colonel Randy Kramer's doing stuff, Emery's doing stuff. A lot of people are working
Yeah,
on these things behind.
everyone is. It's
That's exactly,
time travel, portals. We're all on this page right now. You know what I mean? That's
Mhm.
why I brought up To the Stars Academy, Hal
Yeah.
Pudov. very famous physicist. Okay. McCaslin was in dialogue with Tom DeLonge, who was part of To the Stars Academy with Hal Puthoff and those other people, intel agencies, top agents, and scientists. Okay. Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff. These guys were obsessed. And this is years ago. And the same with John, what's his name? Oh God, it'll occur to me. Anyway, all I'm saying is that that's where their heads were at.
Hmm.
They've been investigating this. And so when, in theory, if you just want to take it down to a much more sort of basic level, McCasland, I believe, I was told by my whistleblower,
Hmm.
somebody behind the scenes, who said he was abducted by the CIA. He put a gun in his belt because he knew he was going to talk to these people who are not trustworthy, right?
Wow.
About what he was disclosing to Tom DeLonge and to the Stars Academy people, which, because they are supposed to be like a bridge organization between the secret space program and the
Hmm.
public. And what they thought he was doing was violating his security oath, okay, by talking
Hmm.
to them. So, by way of Tom DeLonge, this was never put out correctly. Okay. I'm sorry, but Ross Coulthart either kept it silent on purpose or tried to misdirect people. This is what I'm finding with journalists a lot lately.
Hmm.
Now, they may feel threatened. Okay. Coulthart has been left, he has been given access behind the scenes. So that puts you in danger. Okay. When you get told secrets, you also become a secret bearer, and then they can take you out. They can rationalize taking you out or doing something with you, right? And so I'm not going to blame him for not putting out the correct information. He has his access, I have mine. I can
Correct.
tell you that most of my top whistleblowers and witnesses have all disappeared since July of 2025.
A lot of mine have too. I am
Several. I mean, I'm talking top of the top. They've all gone to ground, including Captain Mark Richards, who I wrote
going
a
dark.
book about. So, this is not accidental what's happening here. Okay. You understand? They think if they cut those people off from me that I won't know anything, but it's too late. See,
But you
because if
never
you
know.
you get involved in this stuff,
Yeah.
we learn through osmosis. I'm already in the game. I already know this stuff. I can figure it out on my own. I don't need anyone else to come and whistleblow to me. Okay. I don't even give a shit about that anymore because I already know the truth. Okay. What I'm doing now is telling the truth that I know, telling the truth that they told I talked to whistleblowers for 20 years. For
You
hours and hours and hours. Some of them never came forward to the public. It's all rubbed off on me.
like when I met, and actually it was funny. I put this ring on today too. This was given to me actually by Lucia Mann. She was an author, but she was an MI5 agent. She just passed away in her 80s up here near the cusp, right? And she wrote several books, and one of the ones that caught my eye was like the hidden myths of the arrows, right? And I'm looking at this. Okay, well that's the Arrow Lake. That's right here in the Kootenai area, but it had the barbed wire. So I was like intrigued. So I did. I tracked her down. We spent a couple, days together before she passed away. I helped extend her life because of you always can have all this knowledge and security clearance, but they took a couple injections, and that was we could only do so much, right? And so anyway, it was all about Project Paperclip. I knew that when I looked at it. It was about the trafficking here. She told me about Anastasia. She talked about the different things of the Germany and the Nazis and everything. And she wrote all these books. She gave them to me. And she said, "You need to know this." But I spent the 2 days and she just downloaded with me. But one of the most interesting things, as she said, screw the MI5 and her Majesty's Secret Service. She said, "My oath died when she died. We have other oaths that we have to keep." But she said, "I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff here, right?" And and I was
Right.
like, yeah, that's great. It's in here, but it goes back to what these people have. They want this knowledge passed off, but also a lot of them have been betrayed,
Mhm.
And a lot of these people should be actually charged with, treason and high treason. And I was
Yeah.
laughing because my cousin's one of the top constitutional and natural health lawyers is Sean Buckley. He set up the whole thing to stop MAID and SOGI and the children and the MAPS and especially the injections, right? 3 years he dedicated his life, right? And then all of a sudden I have a dream about him the other day, right? But this thing, coincidences, there's no such thing as coincidences. They show up on my Facebook and there he is. I said, I need to talk to you because it had to do with actually the Stargate and Hope. And I sat there and I said, people don't realize, you know, how this comes together and how connected we are, you
Yes.
know, and the
Yeah.
precognition. I just got another client from someone I did on the island. It got better. She called this woman that does biofeedback as well. She invented some technology on the island. I was on it 3 hours before she called me saying, I heard about you. I want to talk with you. So you're tapping in, birds of a feather flock together, however you want to say it. And that's why I like that message that you bring. There is no death. Even with what we're dealing with, there is, and I don't even like the idea of bifurcation and the pull shift, everything we've got there, it's a processional. This isn't the first time we've gone through this, and it won't be the last.
Right.
But, I think
Um,
that's one thing that we can bring is the stability and the truth. No one's going to take away from all those meetings that you were in. You know what you know.
oh
No one's
yeah.
going to change that. No one's going to change what I saw and heard. You know, Forget it.
Yeah, but I think that, the way we sort of you play it forward, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So as long as you do that, and I'm kind of relentless in that regard, I think people might agree. The thing is that I just want to talk for a second about 107, talking about Tina Peters, because, he
Okay.
talks about her a lot. And there's things about that that make absolutely no sense. Okay. I think everyone would agree at this point. If you've been following the story, it's just insane. But the bottom line with that is that there is a purpose that is above and beyond the one that he talks about. So let me explain something. I know that maybe people won't be able to buy into this, but what we're dealing with, okay, you know how we have secrets and we have the Epstein and we have the this and we have the that. So every time we get some big disclosure and it hits the news and then people start getting into it, right?
Hmm.
But the elephant in the room is the secret space program.
Agreed.
Okay. Because they are actually ruling us on surface Earth and we don't know it. Okay. And they are making deals with ETs and off world cultures and making colonies and taking our children off world as well, which
Hmm.
Epstein was also involved in. And
Yep.
so is
Guard.
Erica. I mean, I get this information. It just comes to me now. It's just insane. And I know it like I know my name, like the back of my hand, whatever you want to say. So all I have to say is that if you have this elephant in the room, it's called the Secret Space Program or programs with an S, doesn't
Hmm.
matter. The point I'm trying to make is that it is a government in and of itself.
Hmm.
It's running itself. It's running surface Earth and it's also running its own operations. And no one talks about it except, people that are really into the sort of space that stuff or whatever.
Hmm.
All I'm trying to say here is that the reason Colorado won't let Tina go is because of the secret space program. Now, one never tells you that, but that's who's running Trump. That's
Yeah.
who's telling Trump what he can and can't do. Okay. So you can talk all day and all night about how you hate Trump, those Trump haters. But the fact of the matter is that we have in the secret space program, William Tompkins talked about it. One side is the Pleiadians and the other side is the reptilians. And that's probably a simplification because we have more races than that
Hmm.
trying to run our lives. Okay. But this is the bottom line. And it goes back to the paperclip Nazis. It goes back and back and back. So the
Hmm.
bottom line is that she rebelled. I think she actually did so because Juan told her to, and which she has
Really?
a whole guilt complex over. I don't know that for a fact. Okay. So let me just give a caveat there. But look, it doesn't matter whether he does or he doesn't. He knows it's because of the war behind the scenes. So you have the war that everyone knows about, and then you have another war that's really going on behind the scenes,
Hmm.
which is that Trump and the White Hats are trying to change surface Earth in a way that the secret space program and the aliens that run it with the humans that run it don't want to see happen. And it's that we
Yeah.
are, there was always this saying back in the day, that humans were growing too fast. Actually, even when the Anunnaki came and invaded us and tried to change our DNA and the frequency fence in our head and all that,
Hmm.
is that we are, and now just look at us. We're exploding. Truth is exploding all over the planet. And I believe that the Schumann resonance is the light from the sun affecting our Schumann resonance. And light is knowledge, it's wisdom. It's coming into us
Hmm.
every single day, bombarding us to make us like, think of the movie Lucy. We're turning
Yes.
into Lucy, all of us, okay? And if you start tracking yourself, you're going to see that's true. So as long as you don't die of it, leave this body, in other words, then you're going to be able to survive through the most amazing times because we are becoming Lucy. Not all the wires and all that thing, but
Paraphernalia. Yeah.
being triggering 100% of our DNA. 100%. Okay? That's where we're headed. Think about it. This is what's happening. So it's a war between the people, the beings that don't want us to go there and want to keep us stupid and dumbed down, and they're blocking the sun. Why are they blocking the sun? Because they don't want you to get more intelligent or to awaken all the DNA that you already have within you. So this is the thing. This is the real war. You see what I'm saying?
Agreed.
It's
Oh,
not,
totally.
it's
Oh,
not,
totally.
some ship in the Gulf of Hormuz.
It's blocked. It's not.
There
It's
are
$1 billion.
stargates. The stargates are factoring in a huge way because
Yeah.
why? Because they're ingress and outgress, or however you say, aliens come in and out through those gates. Hello.
It's upstairs every day. Someone tells me, "Did you see that? I think I lost count at 55 ships yesterday." We do. We live in ET Central. And how can you not? They go into our lakes, they come out. We've
Yeah,
seen so much stuff. I mean, this has got to be, like I said, one of the most famous or infamous areas, right? So I don't know, like I said, I might be jumping into the bloody fire pad and going, storming the castle and being near there. But, there's so many things. And I mean, we make our lives what we want them to be. And we can look at it with that doom and gloom, or like you said, we can take this. There are light codes coming in. There are sound codes coming in. Sound gets here
amazing.
before, right?
Amazing.
And it's the sound codes I like because I started working with some of the stuff like, back here too. This is actually when the neurovisors, we're taking actually sound, converting it to a light code. So it has a mnemonic mathematical code. And people are closing their eyes right now and they can see the light within. You're seeing fractals and kaleidoscopes of light without tripping with drugs because the sound and the light is going in and it's decalcifying our pineal gland.
Yeah,
And now people all of a sudden, we have clients that all of a sudden, like Carrie, they've had Alzheimer's and dementia, and they're
right.
coming back within weeks. And it always
Yeah.
helps with the right oil and get your frankincense and cedar wood up into your brain and cross the blood-brain barrier and chelate that stuff out and oxygenate. But the bottom line is, I said at the end of days, I'm going to come down. I can say all my credentials, 30 of them will come down to I'm an electrician and a plumber. It's water, it's light, and it's sound. And may we go out and have the best time ever. Thank you for spending this time with me.
Okay,
I
thank you for
really,
spending
oh,
this time with and the people that are listening, and
yeah,
we'll send this out and hopefully it'll make some sense to someone. But anyway,
makes sense to you and I. And you know what? We got
yeah.
to spend the
And I
afternoon
think
together. I love it.
I think we have to, I would just urge people to be kind during this time. Even when you
Passion.
disagree with somebody and you think they're absolutely wrong, it doesn't matter. Either they'll come to it in their own time or they won't. You know what I mean? And then they'll come back in another body and they'll go through the whole game again. So just, stay awake and alive, and, let's wait and see all the things that come out about David and what really happened and so on and so forth. Because, just like the Charlie Kirk, you know, supposed assassination, as far as I'm concerned, he's absolutely unequivocally alive. That was my conclusion of my investigation.
No.
So take it for what it's worth. Have a great night. And let's all, pray for David to be on a great path.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. You too. Okay. And I'm going to try to run the credits, but no guarantees that I'll get that right. So just, you can wait. I have to close this down.
Got it?